Okay.
One sec, I'm still loading. Okay, whenever you're ready.
All right, thank you very much. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome. Just in case you're not sure, this is the program administrator update for KSBN. I had several of you on this morning for our orientation for new administrators, and I appreciate the time that you spent with that. And I know I've had some others who attended as well who maybe aren't quite as new, but it's always good to have you. We like to keep you as updated as we can. And I just want a couple of housekeeping things. Because we did do this by webinar this time, I think Michelle has sent out some updated contact information sheets to you all. Hopefully you've all been able to get that back to her. We like to keep as current a list of our contacts as we can. If you've had any changes since she did send them out, go ahead and send her those changes directly, and we will keep our contact sheet as updated as we can. And having said that too, I wanted to, I know Carol will talk a little bit about new staff, but just for purposes of the education staff, before we've had Chelsea, who's been helping us with things, and things have moved around a little bit. So Chelsea has a new role within the education department, and we have welcomed Michelle Brown, who is with us on the meeting today, to our staff as our education secretary and admin assistant for the education department. So we really want to take time and welcome her and want you to know her face and her email, which I will have on a contact sheet. She'll welcome her to our department and work with KSBN. So we appreciate having her, and Chelsea continues in her new role, and we love continuing to have her as well. One other thing, we are going to be sending out, doing our follow-up or feedback about this meeting and the one this morning. We will be sending out after the meeting. We have a short survey monkey we would like for you to do just in terms of feedback for these meetings for future reference. So be looking for that in your email after this event. It'll be sometime this week. Hopefully by Friday, we will have that out to you. Okay, that said, Colton, if you will advance to our first slide. Or I guess to our slide deck, since you had the welcome slide.
Can we see it?
You can see it. Can you put it in view mode? It's got all the slides on it. Does that make a difference?
Unfortunately, I can't do the full screen without it messing Zoom up.
All right. Well, we'll just go from there then, and go ahead and advance it to the next slide then.
Gotcha.
I had mentioned, I just wanted to put in a contact page and not forget to do that. So these are for your education department, and Chelsea does have a new number. So Michelle now has the 3782 number, which you might be familiar with, but that is for our department. And that's how you can reach her. And then Chelsea now has a new extension at 5062. So I just wanted to make sure those contacts were there for you. We will make the slide deck available to you all so that you have that contact information. Next slide. I think I also put in contacts, just we'll be talking a little bit more with Rayanne, and Linda's not able to be here because she's doing investigative today, but we'll talk a little bit about what questions can go her direction. And then as always, Carol, as our executive administrator, can answer questions as well if you need answered from a higher level or for things that are not education related but are important. So I just wanted to make sure you had all those contacts, and that's fine. Colton, go ahead. And I always like to start our update, and before we start, just to remind everybody that the mission for the Kansas Board of Nursing is to assure the citizens of Kansas safe and competent practice by nurses and mental health technicians. And that's why we do the things we do in terms of the regulations, is to make sure that happens. I know sometimes we get a little feedback about, well, you're not supporting nurses, and we try to do that the best we can, but the best way we can do that is by following our mission to follow those regulations and make sure that we're keeping everything as up to date and focused on good nursing education and good licensing practice and follow up. So that being said, I'm going to let Carol Moreland, she has some updates for you, and I'm going to let her go in the order that she would like to in terms of the next 4 items on our agenda. So Carol, I'd like to hand it over to you.
Thanks, Janelle. Hello, everyone. It's nice to be with you again. I was on there this morning, but I didn't say much this morning. So anyway, this is kind of my turn, I guess, to say a little bit. I just wanted to kind of update you on the staff changes. Janelle kind of alluded to this. Chelsea has been promoted. Chelsea now handles CNE and she handles IV therapy. So she would be your contact about those two. Michelle is the new education assistant and is doing a great job. I'm sure she'll feel much better after this week is over. It's a lot this week. Rachel Kinney is one of our new disciplinary counsels. She's an assistant AG out of the Attorney General's office. So we have Will and Rachel now for our disciplinary counsels. And then they have a new admin assistant, Megan Hughes. So if you call disciplinary division in our agency, you will end up with Megan. And then we have a new investigator, Richard Young. And Richard's probably been with us for, I don't know, I would guess maybe around 3 months or something like that. But he is doing a great job. So that's pretty well the staff changes. We still have a few openings. It's a little challenging in these times to hire and stuff like that, but we're hoping it will get a little bit easier. Okay, just to kind of move right into the update. There's been some very significant things going on, I guess is what I would call it. They've kept us pretty busy anyway. Let's put it that way. You all are aware that there were several executive orders put out by the governor that extended the licensure expiration dates anywhere from March of 2020 through July of 2021. So we had some nurses who took advantage of that, some nurses that did not, but they had to have those renewed by August 29th, 2021, or those licenses lapsed. And it kind of messed up our, knowing the impact of the nurse licensure compact for the first 2 years, because that actually would have ended the end of June. So we really didn't know the impact of the nurse licensure compact until August 29th. We did have what I would call a significant number drop off as far as licenses, but when you start looking at what was in play, maybe the numbers are not too surprising, because over 6,000 of them had multi-state licenses from someplace else, or they had a multi-state license. So they should not have renewed their single state license. And so that was appropriate. And then we usually drop off probably somewhere around 250 a month that choose not to renew their license for whatever be the reason. Okay, if you take that times 18 months, that's quite a significant number too. So actually we've had, I think 113 reinstatements. We were very concerned that it was going to leave the healthcare facilities short, for the nurses who had not renewed, even though we've communicated and communicated and communicated. But I don't believe that was the case. I've talked to some of the administrators at some of the bigger hospitals, and there was no impact at all. So evidently it went well. But now we're trying to get the message out there that, if they waited to renew their license, that does not reset their license expiration date. It's in statute and regulation that it's always on your birthday month. It's always the end of your birthday month. And it's always even or odd years based on whether you were born in an even or an odd year. So some people that have chosen to wait are going to have a very short renewal period. And they will have to have 30 hours of CNE in that renewal period. So any help that you can get to get that information out would be appreciated. And then staffing at the agency, the pandemic has been a challenge for us, just like everyone else. in March of 2020, we took 70% of our staff out to telework so that we would decrease the chance of exposure, because if we had all of our staff in the agency at one time and there was an exposure, that could take all of the staff out of our agency and close our agency down, which you cannot have happen during a pandemic. So for that reason, we made the choice to leave 70% of our staff out. I have watched their performance metrics very closely through this time, and they're doing a really, really good job. Really good job. I'm very proud of the staff and how flexible they have been and everything like that. You know, we were told in May to consider bringing our staff back. And so I gave this a lot of thought and talked to the board about it, got feedback from the staff, and I gave the staff 3 choices. They had to choose one of each, not all of them, each one chose one. And they had the choice of staying hybrid, but they had to be back in the agency a minimum of 8 hours a week. Or they could just go back traditional, be in the office 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. Or they could have a flex schedule. They could work 4 10s, but it would have to be in the agency. It would not be remote. And so it's no surprise most of them did choose the hybrid. I figured that would be the case. And we started that in July, and then probably about 5 weeks later, we were told that we had to get the majority of our staff out teleworking again because of the Delta variants. So I understand that that's going to be reevaluated around the first part of October. So I don't know, but I think probably most of it on here will agree that we're not at the end of this. So we'll see. But anyway, the staff are available by email. We had a little problem with phones, but we're getting soft phones on everybody's laptops. So they should be available by phone now if they didn't have cell phones or something along that line. But if you run into any problems or anything like that, please let me know. You have my contact. Janelle gave it to you. And I will certainly follow up on any problems that we may be having. I am encouraging people really to look at our website. We have done a lot of work on our website, and I'll give a very big thank you to Colton for that. He does a great job with our website, but there is a wealth of information on that website. And, you know, we're always trying to improve that website. So if you think of something that you think would help, you know, again, please let me know, and we can certainly look into it. Another thing that we're getting ready to do is, you know, the committee assignments for the, you know, the different committees that we have during board week. Those assignments will actually be made after the September meeting. I do not make those assignments. Those assignments are made by the board. They're actually the president and the vice president will meet. Probably I would bet within a couple of weeks after that. We just have to set up a Zoom and stuff like that, because there's going to be elections of the board on Wednesday. So we don't know who's going to be president, vice president, and secretary. But at that point in time, they will review all of the applications, and they will make the assignments and appointments to the committees. They're actually the ones that do that. A couple of exciting things I think we've done that kind of have been on my bucket list for a little while, but we just never quite got around to it, is we've updated the format for the newsletter, the annual report, and the strategic plan. And the newsletter, I think, looks much better. We're trying to make the newsletter much more, trying to have information in there that will be much more useful to nurses. And then the annual report looks a whole lot different than it used to. It has a little bit different information in there. It has some information in there about the budget. It has information in there about our performance metrics for the agency and where we're at with that. We haven't put those in there before. It does not have the long history section that was in there before. However, if you have a need for our history, we do have a document that has that in that we can certainly get to you. Let me see. So our new formatted fiscal year 2020 annual report is on our website. We will be getting the data to Arthur Davis, who's actually doing the new format for the fiscal year 21 annual report right after, probably starting next week, truthfully, and then it will come back in December for the board to approve. You know, I just want to say we really appreciate everyone's support during this very challenging time. It hasn't been an easy thing to be a regulatory nursing board during the pandemic because we never do anything fast enough, anything like that. But we are doing the very best that we can. And I think we've continued to do a very good job. So thank you for that. We appreciate all of your support. Just a little bit on the NLC update. It is moving ahead really good. There's 38 states and 1 US territory that are part of it now. Not all of those states have implemented it yet, but the most recent states that have joined are New Jersey, Guam, that's the territory, Vermont, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. And some of those I would not have thought to join because it's been a struggle for them. But I think you will see the NLC take off much faster because of the pandemic. And it's made it a whole lot easier to mobilize nurses with multi-state licensure. You know, to date, we have issued, and this is since we joined July 1st of 2019, we've issued 591 multi-state LPN licenses and 5,864 multi-state RN licenses. So I anticipate within a couple of years, it is going to be probably the multi-state is going to be more popular. And I could see why. Definitely. I think the pandemic has brought that to light. Okay, so now comes the topic that probably some of you want to hear about, and that is the education regulations, the status of those. These are the undergrad education regulations that the work was started quite some time ago, years ago on these. And they've been stalled here and they've been stalled there. They've been reworked and reworked and reworked. Well, the good news is that they're approved through the 3 agencies that have to approve them: Division of Budget, Department of Administration, and the Attorney General's office. So we have all of those stamps of approval. The next step was to set up a public hearing date. We did. That is set up October 25th. And the information is on our website about that public hearing. The information is also in the education packet. So it should be readily available to you. Just kind of to talk through how this process occurs. We have to do, to set up the public hearing, we had to give you at least 61 days notice before the public hearing. And we gave more than that. And during that 61 days, anybody can submit any comments, written comments, to me. All of these written comments will be viewed by the board, right? So if you have comments about these undergrad education regulations, you need to get your comments to me in a written format. They can be by email, they can be sent to me, however you want them. But this is your time to give written comments. Now, what happens at the public hearing is if you want to give written comments, you do not have to give any public comment, verbal comments. That's totally up to you. If you want to give verbal comments, then you will either come or dial in by conference call to the public hearing. And all of that information is in there, right? If you give public comments at the public hearing, you have to follow up with those in a written format within a few days to me. You can go ahead and send your written comments to me and still do verbal comments if you want to. That's certainly fine. The public hearing is set up for 2 hours. So it's likely that you're going to get 5 minutes to speak because I would imagine there's going to be several of you that want to make verbal comments at the public hearing, and that's totally fine. Again, I just want you to be aware that if you do verbal comments, you have to follow those up with written comments that match your verbal comments, because all of the written comments go to the board to review, all of them. I went over to the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules and Regs Friday and presented the proposed changes over there. They had some very good questions. They were supportive of them, but they also will provide written comments that will go back to the board. So what will happen after the public hearing is Jill and I will get all of the comments compiled. They will be sent out to board members and they'll be available because again, they're public comments. And then the board, I'm going to talk to them Wednesday, but likely they will have a special board meeting because for these to be through the rest of the process and ready to go by January 1st, they will not be able to wait until their December meeting. So the board has to meet then, and they have to have had a chance to review all of those comments, talk about any of the comments that they want to, however they want to do that. And then very likely they'll vote to either approve it, or if not, they'll direct me whatever changes they want made. If they make changes, then it starts over in the process again. So again, I just want to be very clear that everything, all of those proposed regulations with the stamps and everything are in your education packet. So now is your time to dig into those and provide any comments that you want to provide. All of you have the opportunity to do that. You know, the public hearing, Jill and I will be in the Landon building. The room, I don't have it right in front of me, but it's the big room that we usually meet at. But just be aware, you are not required to come in person. You know, if something happens and the Landon building closes down to the public, we will get that information on our website. But again, we don't know who's going to present or not. You don't have to register with us ahead of time. So you are certainly welcome to call in by conference call if you don't want to make the trip, or you don't want to run, you know, the risk of getting here and the building's not open or something. We will do our best to communicate all of that if that happens. Hopefully that's not going to happen, but you know, we don't have a crystal ball here. So that's why we have the conference call numbers so that you can certainly call in and join by conference call if you don't want to come in person. I will tell you, if you come in person, anyone coming into the Landon building has to wear a mask, and you will be required to have that mask on the whole time that you're in the public hearing, and you will be socially distancing. And so just kind of be aware of that. But I just wanted to make sure that everybody is aware that this is your chance to give your comments. If you have any questions about the process, the public hearing, the proposed regulations, or anything like that, I would be the person for you to talk to about that. And you've got my contact information, so please let me know. But again, you can submit your written comments. You can send them to me by email. You can send them in the mail to us, however you would like to do that. It's totally fine with us. So I think that's all I have at this point in time. I see maybe there's a question in the chat. Let's see.
The only
Nope.
thing I see, the only thing I see is it was from a comment earlier. So I did forget to mention that if you have any questions, please use the Q&A section rather than the chat. We are trying to cover both, but it's helpful for us just to have to cover one section. If you do have questions, we want to try to answer. So we will continue to monitor that. I think I really appreciate Carol going through that process. It's a process that's sometimes a little difficult to explain, and some people, you know, question why it takes so long. And I think that just is evidence as to what has to happen whenever there is a change in regulations, and it's well thought through. And and looked at. So from here, I would like to go to Rayanne, our Bird, our licensing supervisor. I've asked her if she would do just, I think, an overview again of our initial application process. And the reason for this is we've had several things happening over the last year and a half with the process. I did go over it with the new administrators this morning, because some of that, I think too, is just, it's not always easy to know and get all that information from someone who's leaving about the process and any changes that have happened to it, just so that you are as aware as you can be. As students have questions, we are always glad to answer them, but I think it's helpful for you and a way for you to be able to talk with your faculty too, if they are the ones helping students in this process, for them to just kind of see through that whole process and be able to ask questions. So Rayanne, if you are ready to go.
I'm ready. Can you hear me?
Okay, there you go.
Okay. This is so crazy. I feel like I'm just talking to myself. Okay. So, as far as the initial application process, not too much has changed with the process itself. I definitely just wanted to give you guys the licensing division contacts again. Karen is going to be your NCLEX and your LPN and RN application. She's going to be your main contact. But you know, as Janelle said, if you guys happen to reach out to her, and Janelle is really good at getting those over to us, if she can't answer those questions, you can always email me. Part of the licensing, so half of the staff is teleworking and half of the staff is in the office. So Jackie and Barb are both in the office. So if you have any questions for them, or you can't get a hold of Karen or myself, you can absolutely reach out to them. And if they can't answer your question, then they can get that to us as well. You can go ahead and go to the next slide, Colton. So here is just the flow chart sheet that we have done. I think that we had this last year and maybe even the year before that. We kind of tried to update it to just make it a little bit easier. If you guys want to print this and give this out to your students so that they just kind of know a step-by-step of what happens once we get the information, you can certainly do that. I do think you guys will have access to the slides, because what I wanted to show you was, yep, Janelle's nodding at me. Okay, so you will have access to these, because for this presentation, I really just wanted to point you guys in the right direction on our website. I know the pandemic really shifted everything to electronic. I know it's a lot easier for you guys. It's a lot easier for us. So just kind of wanted to go over that process real quick. Go ahead, Colton. So if you're not familiar, this is going to be the home page of our website, and I put that up there. This is going to be where you're going to go to, like Carol said, look at all of the information. We're going to try and update this here in the next, hopefully the next few months. We've been kind of busy lately, but hopefully in the next few months, we try to get, all that important information right in that orange box. Any notices in that yellow box. We do try to keep up on that, so that the applicants and the licensees know what's going on. Go ahead, Colton. Okay, so to get to the initial application, for those who have not used the website or are not too familiar with it, that toolbar that you saw, you're just gonna hover over license, then you're gonna hover over applications, then initial, you're gonna get a drop-down menu each time, and then you're just gonna click on the LPN RN initial. You can go to the next one. And so this is what you're going to see, that you're going to get an initial application checklist. Again, nothing new, transcripts, fingerprints for a background check, also registration with Pearson VUE. One thing that I did try to stress this morning that I will say again, single state applicants do not need to redo their fingerprints. Those are good for 6 months. However, if you happen to have students who fail and need to retake and they're going for that multi-state license, new background check every single time. So, and then another good reminder is 1 application per test. So if they do have to retake, they do have to submit another application, and they do have to submit another fee to Pearson VUE. You could go ahead and go to the next one, Colton. And again, so when you were on that first screen, we did include the hyperlinks. Basically what I did is just clicked on each one to show you that transcript. So if you click on the official transcript one, you're going to get just an in-depth of what we need. It's got to have the degree awarded, date of graduation, degree earned, mailed or electronically sent. We did go over this morning, just in case the school decides, because I know sometimes the students request them and the school may send them early without the degree on them. We do try to reach out to that specific student to let them know that we can't do anything with that transcript and they do have to have it resent. So just in case there is a problem there, Karen is very good about emailing just to make sure, we can't use this transcript and we need another one. Go ahead and go to the next one, Colton. And here's the information for the fingerprints. So due to the pandemic and the social distancing, we did stop doing fingerprints in the office. And then what actually ended up happening was our equipment was so old that we would have had to get a new contract and new equipment. So we decided not to do that. So we no longer offer the fingerprinting in the office. We typically refer them to just their local police station, or, as a class, you guys might run them through a fingerprinting agency. If you guys have any questions, or if you need to request fingerprint cards, because they do have to use the applicant card, and you would like a class full or a certain amount, we can always get you set up with KBI to request those. We do not really send those out as a class, but if one student in particular needs them, or they just can't get one, or, we can always send those out, but we don't send those out in bulk the way that we used to. But definitely if you would like them, or you're needing to get them for your students, we can always get you KBI's contact information. They may be able to send those out to you as well. But all they need once they go to that waiver agreement and fingerprint, if they just click on that, that's going to give them an instruction sheet and the 3-page waiver. It's going to tell them everything that we need. Where are you going, Colton? There you go. So, of course, the next one is just the NCLEX registration. We just included Pearson VUE's website because, again, like I said this morning, we've got some students who submit the application and their background check, and then they say, my school submitted my ATT or my transcript, but they've never paid Pearson VUE. Or they say, I've submitted for Pearson VUE and I don't have my ATT, but we don't have an application. So again, your main 3 things are going to be your application, your background check, and your Pearson VUE registration. However, I will say, and I don't think I said this morning, fingerprints and background check are not going to affect testing. They will only affect licensure. So we need those back to get that applicant licensed. We do not have to have fingerprints on file in order to make that applicant eligible to test. A lot of students are, and that may be where I know Janelle was talking this morning about our orphan fingerprint pile, because we do have schools sometimes send those in and we can't do anything with them until we get the application. And we have a lot of students that call and they're like, well, you've had my background check since like March, but we don't have an application, so it hasn't gone anywhere. So and a lot of students are panicked because they're like, I'm not going to be able to test because you don't have my fingerprints, or I'm not showing my fingerprints. Fingerprints have nothing to do with testing, just licensing. You can go to the next one, Colton. So if they are applying for multi-state, this is included on there. They have to meet what's called the uniform license requirements, which typically is going to be their regular checklist. So it's going to be their completed application. They're going to have to pass their test. They're going to have to pass from a Kansas approved school. They're going to have to, have their transcripts. They cannot be convicted. I believe it's felony conviction. So if they have legal history, they will definitely want to look over the uniform license requirements to see if they are eligible. But those are all right there. I did mention this morning, foreign educated, we do have to have a CGFNS and a TOEFL. That is probably not going to be most of you guys. You guys are going to be the Kansas schools, but just in case you've maybe got one, you would find that information there. And then there's a few more links there. If you have a student that maybe is needing accommodations, you can click on that information right there. If they have to take the NCLEX again, I know what's interesting sometimes is, we have a student who calls and they're like, well, I failed. I don't know what to do. The school did it for me the first time. So, and it's actually just the same thing. The way that I like to think of it is one application per test. So if they fail that test again, they're going to have to submit another application, another registration with Pearson VUE. So it's 1 and 1 for everything. If it's been more than 2 years since you've graduated, you do have to do the petition to test. Again, those probably aren't going to be a lot of you, the students that you guys are, but that information is there just in case. And then legal history on the application, if they have to answer yes to a legal question, all of that information, and they do have to submit some supporting documentation, typically like certified court documents and a letter of explanation. If they have any questions about that and you guys click on that, please, you can call us. We can get you over to the legal department to kind of figure out what we need. Like I said this morning, the faster that we get this information, the better. Because if it does have to go to legal to be reviewed, licensing basically has to send it to a different department and somebody else has to look at it. So you are looking at a little bit of a delay, hopefully not too much, but it is going to have to be looked over by someone else before it comes back to us. You can go ahead, Colton. So once you're on that website, how do you submit that online application? You are just going to sign into your portal. You're just going to, for most of the new students, you're probably going to have to click that create an account. Then you're going to click on applications, exam, and you're going to have to select your profession, and then which would be nursing. And then you're going to have to select the license you are applying for. So this is a big one because this is going to be where they're going to select RN multi-state, RN single state, because in Kansas, you have the option to do either. We do have a lot of students that they submit the single state application, not realizing, and they're like, no, I want the multi-state. If that happens, and we have had a lot of them reach out to us, what we generally do is just reach out back to them and tell them that they typically just have to send us the remainder of the fee. There is a fee difference in that application. The multi-state is going to be $125. The single state is going to be $100. So we would just tell that student, we can change it over in the system. Karen might have them submit a paper application so that they can fill out the declaration of primary state of residence, which is required. And then just an additional fee for that. For the remainder. So if they have any questions about that, you can just have them reach out to Karen. If they made a mistake and they're like, no, I do want the multi-state, just have them reach out to us and we can get that figured out with them. Then what you're going to do is just click on that start application, and you're just going to want to make sure that you go all the way through the application, answer every question that you can, do not leave anything blank. If you leave your application for any reason, you will be able to pick it back up by logging in and clicking on continue in the blue bar above your pending application. There are a lot of people who either don't finish it, don't answer a question, or they go and come back to it, or they just think that they've done it and they haven't. They call and they say, I can't, it shows pending. And we're like, we don't even see it on our side. So definitely make sure that you get to the point where you can print and save your receipt so that you know that your application's been submitted. You can go ahead to the next one, Colton. Okay, so again, just a quick reminder, the multi-state versus the single state. It's pretty self-explanatory. Single state only allows them to practice in the state of Kansas. This is good for anybody who's like, hey, I'm going to stay in Kansas for forever. The multi-state will allow them to practice in Kansas and other participating compact states, but you have to meet those certain requirements. For the multi-state, you have to have the Kansas driver's license, Kansas address, and you are claiming Kansas as your primary state of residence. The single state, they can apply with any state's driver's license, any state's address. They do not have to claim Kansas as primary state. This is a big one for the students that come into Kansas just to go to school and then decide to go back home. So even though they're in Kansas right now, they have a Nebraska driver's license, an Oklahoma driver's license, and they're not planning on, they can always contact that Board of Nursing as well. Or we have a lot of students who decide to change to the Kansas driver's license, and then they would meet those requirements. So totally up to them. But that's the big difference, is they do have to hold a Kansas driver's license and a Kansas address. You can go to the next one, Colton. Okay, so not too much has changed. This has been our typical time frame. We say to allow up to 10 business days. Everything has, we process everything in the order that it's received. I know that sometimes that is so frustrating, especially for the students because they are ready to work. But the only thing is there are so many of them, we just have to try and keep it fair. So we tell them to allow at least 10 business days. I would even say maybe once transcripts are submitted to us, that might even go up to like 2 or 3 weeks, just because you guys are so good at sending your transcripts, you guys send them at the same time. So, if we could on a Monday or Tuesday get, say we get on a Monday, we get 4 schools with 100 plus students, and then Tuesday and Wednesday we get 2 or 3 schools. So, we really try to work those in the order that those come in. And they can go in anytime. They can check their application status. They can view their checklist. We have changed some things. So we have gotten very descriptive on our checklist so that they are able to look at that and really see application process, application reviewed. Our new checklist, and I don't think I said this morning, but our new checklist even includes exam eligibility sent to Pearson View. So, and in addition, we would have that transcript. I don't believe that we have an ATT check, an ATT box on there because some schools don't do that. So we didn't include it for everyone. But there is an exam eligibility button that they can see. There's a fingerprint card received, fingerprint card sent, license fee. So we tried to get as descriptive as we can so that hopefully they can go in there, look at their checklist, see it, and hopefully not have to call. I mean, absolutely, if they have questions, they can certainly do that. But we try to make it as easy as possible just so that they can see their information. And that My Portal is going to be listed right in that toolbar on the homepage. You can go to the next one. So again, same thing, nothing's really changed. In order for them to test, we've got to have that completed application transcript with the degree and the graduation date. Or the school sending that signed authorized ATT, and the applicant must have paid Pearson View. Can't make them eligible without those 3 things or one or the other as far as the ATT and the transcript. The only thing that I would ask for those ATTs, please convey what date you guys are making those students eligible. We get a lot of calls like, hey, my school sent my ATT, and we're like, yes, they did, but we can't make you eligible until this date. And they're like, oh, okay. So that's the only thing that I would ask. And I think I can't speak for Karen, because typically if she gets a lot of calls about something, she'll tell me about it so that I can pass the information on to Janelle, so Janelle can pass the information on. I haven't heard too much about the ATTs. So I think those are going okay, but yeah, that would be the only thing about those ATTs is the students are like, you guys have it. And I'm like, I know, but we can't do anything for 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So Karen is very good though. I will tell you, when she gets ATTs, especially for different schools, she will mark those dates in her calendar. So she is on it as far as, getting in and making those students eligible as long as they paid Pearson View. So again, stress that completed application, transcript or ATT, and pay Pearson View. You can go to the next one, Colton. So again, and we talked about this morning, we did have a situation where someone else had signed the ATT. And like I said, we do not, go through these with a fine tooth comb. If they are completed and they are signed and they have a date and everything is correct with the student, and the student information matches, we make them eligible. So please do not send these unless you do not want that student to test, because we are going to make them eligible. And again, students will not be licensed before the transcript is received. So even if they've tested off the ATT or the approval to test, they won't be licensed until we have received their official transcript. Janelle, I think there was a question about an ATT. Is there any way you can look at the question?
Yes, it's just asking if when you say ATT, are you talking about the test before transcript form? And yes.
So the ATT is approval to test or authorization to test. I believe on the website it's listed as authorization to test. But yes, same thing. Sorry. We've got 3 different ways to say that. 3 different ways to say that. Yes, yeah, I think that is what Pearson VUE calls it. So, okay, Colton, you can go ahead. Okay, so in just a really quick overview, we just get a lot of questions about what happens next. So especially when we are busy, okay, so I will say when we are busy, it might take a little bit longer, but typically we're going to update Pearson VUE results within 3 business days of a person taking their test. If they have passed, it's going to show as completed on their checklist. If they have failed, it's going to remain blank, unfortunately. I wish it would say, something, but it doesn't say anything. And then what happens is the applicant is going to receive a fail letter with information. They're going to get their candidate performance report and also information that they do have to submit another application. So unfortunately, if it's blank, we do get a lot of calls, and Karen will say, you know, your results are in the mail. We have not come up with a better way to convey if a person does not pass, but most of those are going to be updated rather quickly. The only time that I would say that might take a little bit is if a student is going to test on a Friday or Saturday and there is a holiday the next week. That might delay our test results just a little bit, but we try to be on top of those as fast as we can. You can go to the next one. Oh, wait, just one second. I did go over this. If they do have to retake, they do have to do the application and Pearson VUE registration. They do not have to send in transcripts again. We will keep the transcripts from the original file and just forward those to the new one. So they do not have to resend those to us. So they've passed, but where's their license? Again, so many factors can determine their licensure. Definitely, I would tell them to go to that checklist. Again, they might have tested off an ATT, but we don't have a transcript. Their application could have gone to legal. We're still waiting on legal to approve everything, even though we have everything on the licensing side. Or they could have tested, we've got transcript, application, but we got their fingerprints late. So we're waiting on results of the background check. So, you know, a lot of things can determine licensure. We try to get everything in. If it's our last piece of information, again, we process within 7 to 10 business days. If we have everything we need, we'll get them licensed. But those are usually our situations where we're still waiting on something. Janelle, I think there was another question.
Yes, and that it has to do with legal, and Carol, I'm going to have you open your ears here too. The question is, several students have asked if they are to select yes if they've had a misdemeanor that was expunged. Is that correct? I believe that when they have an expunged misdemeanor, that should not show up on a background check, that they would answer no to that. But if that's something I need to send to Linda, I will. But I think we've had that conversation in terms of the expunged. That does not show up on their background check if that's already been, that's off the record. So they should be answering no to that.
Mm-hmm. That's what I would say as well. We can double check with Linda.
This is a reminder, on our website, there is information about self-reporting and what they need to report and stuff like that. So I would encourage everyone to go look at that. I think that can answer some of the questions too. But we can always ask Linda, and then you can email it out to everybody.
I'd be glad to do that.
So the other reminder that we get a lot of questions about, especially with students, is they call because they have finally gotten their license, and it's not valid. It's only valid for 8 months. It's only valid for a year. It's only valid for a year and a half. They thought that it was 2 years. So Kansas renews according to the month and year that you were born. So it really just depends on when you're licensed. We've got to get you into that renewal cycle, but everyone's expiration is going to be different. We will not issue a license for less than 6 months, which definitely means depending on when your birth date falls, you might not get the full 2 years the first time the license is issued. So definitely be sure to check their expiration date, make sure they go in and renew. I know at that point, you guys probably are not going to have a lot of, because they've graduated, they've passed, they're out, they're not your problem. So you might not get a lot of that. But I just like to kind of have this information available for you guys, because it's not going to guarantee that just because they've passed their first license is 2 years. So if they have any questions about that after they get their license, they can absolutely call Barb. She's our renewal clerk. She's wonderful. And then we can talk them through that as well. Go ahead, Colton. So I just included just a few different scenarios. It seems like, especially with the students, once they graduate and get their license, they are on the move. So their situations kind of change. A big one for us is they went single state because they wanted to stay in Kansas for forever. They've changed their mind. Especially now, travel positions are so lucrative that, why not? You're a new nurse, and so all they would have to do is submit what's called a conversion application. They would have to do another set of fingerprints for a background check, because probably by the time we got them licensed, and maybe by the time they want to apply for the multi-state, time has passed. So they've got to do a new background check. And again, they'd want to make sure that they meet the ULRs, but as long as they would do that, they would be able to convert at any time. Another big one is Kansas is not my primary state of residence. I hold another state's driver's license. Can I still test here and be licensed? Absolutely. They'd just be eligible for the single state because, they don't hold our driver's license. They can absolutely, let's see, unless you change your driver's license, or they can't always reach out to their home state and apply for licensure there. I think the scenario I said this morning was like, I had a student who typically is going to go through their licensure process here because the school was wonderful and they helped them through it. So they got their license here, but in 5 or 6 months, they moved back home. So they moved back to Nebraska. All they have to do is contact Nebraska Board of Nursing and say, I need to endorse my license. I've moved, or I've come back home. So what do I need to do? At that point, they would probably meet Nebraska's primary state of residence, but they would just want to double check. But they could always do the multi-state there. And then in turn, that would take the place of their Kansas single state. Since Kansas is compact, they would no longer have to renew, but they would still be able to work here. So I know that gets sticky. I know that that's confusing. If you guys have any questions, or your students have any other scenarios, feel free to reach out to us, because we've gotten a few calls. I know that if you don't work with it all the time, it's like, wait a minute, what am I doing? So if you have any questions about that, just let us know. But you can go to the next one, Colton. So again, like I said, sticky gets even stickier. I am moving to another compact state. What happens to my Kansas multi-state? One of the biggest misconceptions about this multi-state license is if you get it in Kansas, you are good to go for forever. Not the case. It's not a national license. So what you have to do is, once you change your primary state of residence, like I'm moving to Oklahoma, I've got my multi-state, I can start work right away because Oklahoma is a multi-state and I've got a multi-state license. However, I've got to reach out to Oklahoma Board of Nursing because I'm changing my primary state. So I've got to contact that Board of Nursing, and I have to see what I need to do to transfer that license over. Another one, I have a Kansas single state license, and I'm moving to another state that is not compact. What happens to my license? And this one is going to be very interesting because, like Carol mentioned, so many states are on the compact bandwagon, which I don't think would have happened without the pandemic, but I think it really shifted. I myself am so excited for Ohio because I get Ohio nurses like crazy. So I am so ready for Ohio to be compact. But so they don't have to do anything. The big ones are like California is still single state, Washington is still single state. Gosh, I was trying to think of other ones and I couldn't think of any, but California is our biggest one, that they are single state. So say you move to California, but you want to keep your Kansas single state license in addition to your California one, nothing's going to happen to your Kansas one as long as you renew. Your renew requirements and probably your renewal dates are going to be different. So you definitely have to keep track of that on your end. But as long as you renew, that license is going to stay active as long as you decide to renew it. You can go to the next one, Colton. So I know that was a lot, and even speaking twice, and I think I went through it a little bit faster than I did this morning. So if you guys have any questions, any scenarios, any concerns, if you guys are having problems throughout the busy season, through your May grads, your December grads, you know, feel free to reach out to us. We will get your questions answered. We are always here. Even if we're not here, the other people in licensing are here. Somebody is always there to help you guys out. So if you have any questions, just feel free to let us know.
Thanks, Ray. I'll give you all a chance to see if you have any other questions before she's done. And I would just say too, encourage students, if they do end up calling in or you call in and you don't get a live person, because we do have individuals that are on the phone a lot, please encourage them to leave a message with a question and be as specific as they can. It helps us return their calls much faster, and we do try to get those returned as quickly as possible. But many of them get discouraged, call in, they say, I've called and called and called and nobody answers. But if we have somebody to call back, we are glad to do that, and we do that as quickly as we can. And with information, it helps us get back to them a lot quicker with the answers that they need. So not seeing any questions right at the moment, I'm going to go ahead and continue on. Colton, if you would advance that. And feel free to write questions if you do think of something. I forgot, I think I put this in 2 different spots. We can go on past that. Just a reminder that the director needs to send that, and that a reminder to tell the student the date that you do put on there. Because Linda was not able to join us for investigative in practice, she did give me a couple of slides just to put out there. And again, if these slides result with any questions, I am glad to take anything to her and get her response, and I can get it to you all in response. But I think these are kind of some of the big things they see, just to remember that if there's been a conviction of a misdemeanor or felony, it will cause the application to go to legal review. It's not a big deal. We know that will happen, but it does take time. And anytime there is a yes on the application for any legal question, it does go to review. So again, the website has the information about what documents are needed for certain whatever case that individual might have, and that the applicant, before the application, the documents need to be received when the application is, so that can be presented for a decision. There are certified dated court documents for any convictions that must be received, and explanatory letters from the applicant that must be received for that to go for decision to the committee of the board. Just a reminder, KSBN does not give legal advice, and backgrounds we do not do any background checking or looking into anything until an application for licensure is received. If there is truly concern about what the misdemeanor or felony convictions are, a student or applicant needs to consult with an attorney. We will do our best to give the general, that's what we've got on our website, to give direction, but we are not a legal entity in terms of giving legal advice to applicants. So I just wanted to reiterate that. Next slide. I think one of the other things Linda said, that what they're finding the last few months, the most common application error that they're seeing in terms of the legal is the monitoring question. The question, are you currently participating in a monitoring program approved by a licensing board? For Kansas, the only monitoring program approved by KSBN is KNAP. That's what we mean by a monitoring program. Somebody who works with licensees who have chemical dependency or mental health condition issues that are being addressed, actively being addressed by that organization. We've had some students, I think, mistakenly feel like they're in a monitoring program because they're in an education program, and that is not what that legal question is asking. So just to be clear, in terms of Kansas, KNAP is the only monitoring program that we have. Other states may have similar monitoring programs, and for those who have, like LPNs who might be licensed in other states, who may have monitoring programs in other states to deal with as well, that would be where that question comes into play. Another thing that's happened is we have applicants who want to do the applications on their phones. And Colton, as he mentioned this morning, iPhones are probably the worst for this. They sometimes don't show the boxes that are needed, or they scroll or do something to swipe to get to the next question and it changes their answer. So computer is still the best way to do the application in order to be able to see everything that's on the screen and to make sure they're getting things correctly checked off and answering no's where they mean no and yes where they mean yes, so that it doesn't cause it to go to legal review without, because even if they mark a yes and it's a mistake, it will go to legal for review and they will follow up with that applicant for that remark. And if it's a mistake, they can tell them that, but it just causes it to go and have that kind of side visit over to the legal department. The other thing is, in terms of sometimes they will get a call and request from an applicant for their court certified dated court documents. Once those come to our agencies, those are part of their record. Some things are kept, some things are shredded, whatever that case may be. It is the nurse's responsibility to maintain their own documents. So we do request that we don't always keep everything. So it's their responsibility to keep their certified documents in file and not to come back to us for those in those cases where sometimes we've had some come back, but either due to history or the type of documentation it is, we would not keep it if we did not have to open a case or whatever it may be. So just a reminder, they're responsible for their own court documents and may have to go back to the place of origin for those. Next slide. Just a quick, I don't think there's anything new here. Just a reminder, and this came up a couple of different times this year on remember that your program report codes, if you need those, and you will need those for your annual report, those are on your quarterly NCLEX reports. Those numbers are always on there. In terms of the pass rates, we do a 5-year history that we keep on the website for each program. Those are reviewed. Remember that NCLEX rates are reported on a calendar year rather than the fiscal year like the rest of our stuff. So those rates are always reviewed by the board in the March meeting of each year. Except during the pandemic when we didn't have a March meeting, so it was June. But generally those are reviewed in March, and we do not post those pass rates to the website until after the board has looked at them and approved them in March of that year. So 2021 rates will be looked at in March of 22 and will go to the website after approval by the board. And that's why you don't always see those rates. You will get your quarterly reports that show those rates prior to the board meeting, but we do not publish those on the website until the board has approved them. So that was just my reminder there. Okay, so Chelsea was not able to be with us this afternoon, so I believe Carol is going to review a couple of slides that she had in regard to IV therapy and the PN programs.
Thank you, Janelle. Yes, so I'm pitch hitting here for Chelsea. It's the first time I've seen these slides, so kind of bear with me here just a little bit. The IV therapy regulations were finalized in January of 2020, and they are in 60-16-104. So just some reminders about that. Major curriculum change request has to be submitted if you're going to put that into your PN program. And then there is a PN program IV therapy roster. It's actually, you submitted electronic, so it is on our website, but no earlier than 30 days prior to the graduation date. So if you do it in February and they're done with it in February, but they don't graduate till May, don't send it in to us until 30 days or less before they graduate. That's greatly appreciated. The thing that you have to understand is we get these rosters in and we cannot make them IV certified until they're licensed as an LPN. So we have to hang on to those rosters. And this is something that Michelle gets to do, is review these rosters weekly for new graduates who are licensed. because I have filled in for this a little bit for Chelsea. And the minute they're licensed, they're saying, how come my IV therapy is not on there? How come it's not on there? Okay, well, you got to understand, you were just licensed today. All right. We don't have like this trigger that tells us, hey, Joe Blow was licensed today, so you need to attach his IV cert. We don't have a process like that. So the process is a little labor intensive for us. We're making it work and stuff like that. But anyway, just please bear with us. You know, we get a lot of these. And so it takes a while to go through the list and make sure that we've caught the ones that are licensed. Chelsea is the person who handles IV therapy. So if you have any questions about IV therapy, Chelsea is the one that you need to go to, and her contact information is on there, and she will be more than glad to answer your questions. Is the next slide also IV therapy? Yep. Okay, this is how you would, the roster, how you would submit the roster. You fill this information in. This is on our website. You fill this in and then you click submit and it comes to us and we will take it from there.
I think the one thing Chelsea did mention this morning is that IV therapy roster, I believe, holds 25 names. So for some reason, if you have more than that, she said, just remember you submit that when it's full and then just fill out another one and submit the rest of them. So it's just kind of the limitation of the product that we're using to get those. So 25 names is the max for one form, but you can submit as many as you need to get all of your graduates on forms, and then they will submit them that way. I think that was the only other thing she mentioned this morning. Okay, questions about IV therapy rosters? Okay, I did want to make mention, we've talked about FQRs fairly thoroughly in the past. Something came up in the last few months that raised some questions. And I just want to say at this point, those questions we're kind of getting some clarification on. So for right now, FQRs are submitted with faculty degree plans or higher exceptions in the same way we've always done them. So I want to say that for now, just because of the questions that were arisen, we just want to make sure the regulations are being followed the way they were intended. We're getting that clarification and I will get back to you. But in the meantime, then submit as they've always been done. So that would mean for the FQRs, remember, they're all electronic now. So you'd go to the website. If you have a faculty member who does not meet the qualification stated in the regulations, then you would, if they are on a degree plan, they have to be currently enrolled to be on the degree plan, then you would submit the degree plan to us, as well as the form for the degree plan. Needs to show what program they're working with and when that the graduation date is within 6 years of their start with you. And that degree plan form needs to go with the FQR. If it happens to be on somebody you already have done an FQR in the past, then you would do an update FQR and you would add the degree plan to that update. Anytime you send me a degree plan or a higher exception, it needs to come with an FQR, whether it's an initial one for somebody who's just starting, or whether it's an update for someone you've had working for you before, but you're redoing a higher exception, or there's been a change to their degree plan. Just make sure you submit those with an updated, and there's a place on the FQR that says whether it's an initial form or whether it's an update. So just submit that like you've always done, add the degree plan or the higher exception. If they do not meet the requirements and they are not on a degree plan, then we have to have the higher exception. So one or the other of those has to accompany someone who does not meet the qualifications. And that's the same whether it's you're hiring someone to do a didactic course or a clinical course. So that's some of the clarification we're trying to get right now, but process will continue as it has done. If you've done something different for me because of some conversation we've had, that's fine. Keep it as it is, and no changes to that process unless you hear anything more back from this office. So hopefully that will clarify that for now. Colton, why don't you go ahead? I think I just have, and this, I put this in the slide deck again, the degree plan, where that's found, what you need to do. And then the next one for the higher exception, same thing. It would go with the FQR. Some of you have been submitting them separately, and that's okay. We usually can try to get those together, but I have gotten feedback from some that if you do the degree plan or higher exception first and then get the response that you've submitted it, then you can attach that to the FQR so that those come in together. It's a little easier for us to keep them together, and I don't email you asking you for something you've already sent. We process those individually as they come in. So if they come in together, it's a little bit easier. But I think for the most part, you guys have all been doing a really good job. So if you have any individual questions about how things have come in, just let me know. Next slide. My comment here is we've had no changes to the major curriculum change form. I think the last time we talked, we were going to be working on an electronic submission form for both major and minor, and we are, with the state of emergency orders and everything that's been happening for our IT department and a change in our data center back in January. Just with all those changes, some of the other, those became priorities, and some of the other things that were pushed back a little bit. So we do know those have been submitted and are being worked on. So as soon as those change to electronic, I will be letting everybody know. But for now, just continue with what's available on the website, our PDF documents. If you have any trouble with that or would want to request to send something electronically and want a Word document to fill out, I can get those to you if you just let me know you want the Word document format if you do not have it. So go ahead to the next slide. Minor, there's nothing changed there. Again, when we get it to electronic, we'll be doing approvals that way. Just a quick note for those of you who are in the midst of looking at doing a site visit, an on-site visit, either this fall or next spring. Board had made a decision in June to do on-site. With some of the changes in the governor has not said no travel. They're trying to limit it to, and especially since there are some areas that are very high with the Delta variant right now. I have already started the site visits for our first two. We are doing them on site because it's a little hard for you all as administrators to have that switched on a dime. But for anybody who has a site visit after September 20th, we will be taking it back to the board at this meeting and December meeting to see what that, check in with them and see whether they are going to recommend going back to virtual or whether they'll leave it up to the schools or how that will move forward. So I know some are already in process, and I do have self-studies from a couple other ones, but I may be getting in touch with you depending on what the board does decide. We are still doing site visits in conjunction with accreditation if you as the administrator request that. One thing I will say right now for this fall, CCNE is still doing theirs virtually. ASIN is doing theirs in person, at least as far as we know. Those are still set up to do that way. So as far as I know, there haven't been any changes with that. If any of you have heard differently, that would be a good thing to know. But as of right now, that is what we're working with. Next slide. I just wanted to mention the annual report. Nothing has changed in terms of the regulation. We are still required to do an annual report. It's still due on June 30th. For most of you, this was the first year that we did move to a changed format. We are working in conjunction with NCSBN. Their pre-licensure core data survey is an annual report format that they're using to look at the core data. If you remember, we've talked about the NCSBN program approval guidelines. That core data is based on a lot of the information that they found from those studies and from the information found in there about warning signs and what makes a good program and what are some warning signs when things are not going as well. So one of the advantages of working with them on this, and I think we've said this before, is that we have, I think, 9 states right now that are participating in the pilot year for that. So NCSBN then does the analysis and gives us the data back for that core data for Kansas. And then as soon as all of the states have submitted their information for this pilot year, we will be getting a report that shows how Kansas compares to other states in terms of some of those core data items. And I think that's a huge advantage for us to be looking at and helping us guide how we look at education regulations and things that may or may not need to be changed. I think the board has done a great job. You all started on the education regulations before I came, and a lot of the changes that are being addressed in the current are very much in line with what they found with the study. So I think Kansas is doing well on that course. We will continue to, we will be reporting on our first year in the meetings this week. We had really very few glitches for having it be the first year that we've done this. There are a few things we've learned process-wise, so we will continue to do the information sessions prior to opening up the report for the next year. So next spring, we will be coming to you again with information sessions and probably making some changes in how we do instructions for the annual report, because there were, like I said, a few things that caused some glitching in the reporting end, but I don't think it's anything that we can't fix. And you all did very well in getting your questions out to us and getting them answered. So I just wanted to say a huge thank you to all of you. And if anybody has feedback, I think I had already asked a couple folks to send that. But if you have any feedback, and you can put it on your review of this as well, about how the annual report went for you, or anything that you haven't already submitted to me, I'm glad to take those, and we can make sure we address them with our information session then in the spring. I don't think I had anything more I wanted to say about that. Any questions about that? I'd be glad to answer that. I did just get one response, if you hadn't seen it, that we have a school that's working with ASIN, and for right now, they're saying no changes, that they are going to be on site. So thank you for that confirmation. I appreciate that. Okay, Colton, next slide. Again, I just want a reminder, we've had a lot of discussions lately about the primarily the PN core curriculum and some on the ADN alignment. Those are on our website, as well as the legal issues reference packet. We were talking earlier about some of the information that Carol said was on our website. I think there are some things that are being revised, but everything we have out there right now is current and is very, I think, very focused to what the applicant needs to do if they have legal history. So I just wanted to remind you that that is on either under education resources, legal resources, or on our forms page. You can find a lot of that information as well. It's in, sometimes you can even find it on the home page. We have buttons directing you straight to some of those items. Next slide. Pass rates, I don't think I have anything new here. Carol did mention we do have some changes in our annual report and strategic plan. You'll be seeing those changes and how those, but they're still found in the same spot, but are available on the website. And I just always want to remind you that those things are there and available to you. I think that might be all. Colton, are we at the end of our, I think that's all I had.
Yep, that's it.
Okay, so I guess at that point, if there are any questions, we'd be glad to try to answer them. I'm not seeing anything in our chat or Q&A right now. So I'll just give you a minute. I really want to thank you all for attending. It's always good to be able to talk with you, and hopefully I'll get the same information. If you do have questions that you didn't think of while you were on here, again, send them my way. If you can't remember who to send them to me and I'll get them to the right person. I have a couple things I'm following up with from this morning's session. Probably will just send them out to everybody just because I think they're good questions. So I guess in light of that, if there isn't anything, yes, so I appreciate that comment too. Even though we really thought we wanted to do this in person, I do think Zoom has worked well for us to be able to at least still get the information to you. And I know it's not as interactive as if we were in person together, but I do appreciate that you attend and that we will have the information available to you after the after today as well. If you know anybody who didn't get to come, we will have the resources. The YouTube site will have the information, and then the slides will be available as well. So I guess with that, not seeing other questions, I will just thank you all for coming and hope you have a great rest of your day.